And thank you. Thank you very much indeed. The first time we played in Athens, the poster read, "Flaming Lips with special guest Government Cheese, parentheses, ORT's favorite band, parentheses." There are many times when I doubted the validity of our band because my head just kind of goes that way. You know, I'm kind of an egomaniac with an inferiority complex, and I would stay up all night getting stoned and worried about government cheese was a poverty metaphor for 4 college guys. You know, I would worry about things like that, and then I'd remember that ORT loved us, and ORT knew everything, and everybody. The first time I met him was at Michael's Pub in Bowling Green. That was where we were from, and he walked in the door, this vision with dark hair streaked with gray, a long beard, and this was 1986. REM was my world, and I heard that he lived in Athens, was from Athens. And I threw my guitar down on the stage and ran over and kissed his boots. And he was nonplussed. We got to know each other pretty damn well. He was my Zen sensei, so long as he had eaten recently. ORT with low blood sugar was Satan. He was Dadaism made flesh. About the band names, you got to remember, ORT had the legal pad with him all the time and writing down band names. One of them actually became a band in Nashville, the Hot Buttered Rockets. And my favorite ever band name that he came up with was Too Wet to Be Furniture. I'll never forget the vision of him that night at Michael's Pub when he first walked into my life with his long hair and his beard and his pants hitched up to where they were, you know, closer to his sternum than his belly button. And he stayed on my couch many, many times. We had many, many conversations that I would get mentally exhausted and he was just warming up. I had heard that his livelihood was that he traveled from town to town measuring radio stations' adherence to frequency and power as decided and as licensed by the FCC. And I was a morning man at a country station, and he saw the transmitter in WLBJ. It was a tube-driven transmitter relic from the World War II era, and I watched ORT look at that transmitter from top to bottom like an archaeologist, just entranced. And I remember the night when I was late getting to a government cheese gig in Nashville because ORT was with me, and we had to take a 2-lane, and we had to stop at Freeman Kitchen's Grocery, and I had to stand there and watch ORT eat liver cheese for about 20 minutes. Bits of liver cheese in his beard, and I'm saying, man, we gotta go, ORT. We're not the headliner, we're opening, we need to get there. He taught me the dentist laugh. He introduced me to Jolt Cola. As it says on the can, all the sugar and twice the caffeine. I'll leave you with one of my fondest memories of him. I wasn't there, it happened to our drummer and ORT. I do know that it was coming back from a gig in Louisville, and I believe they had made it about as far as Elizabethtown, Kentucky, which is about 30 minutes south of Louisville on I-65, and Joe's car went down. You know, sometimes when you're driving your car and it just stops working for no apparent reason, that's what happened, and he was able to steer it over to the roadside, and they popped the trunk, and ORT did all those things to the engine that you do when you don't know what the hell you're doing. You whack on the battery, you know, screws and whatnot, and eventually, and Joe couldn't figure out what was wrong with the engine either, so ORT finally said, "Joe, close the hood, please." Okay, I'll close it. And then ORT said, "All we can do now is pray." And ORT did his hands like this, bowed his head. "Now start the car." Joe put the key in the ignition, twisted it, the engine started up, and they went home. Thank you, ORT.